Imagine for a moment that you're a woman who's been in a relationship that seemed perfect on the surface. Beautiful conversations, mutual attraction, even shared dreams. But then, he suddenly pulls away emotionally. Or worse, he stays physically close, yet somehow no longer truly with you. And you find yourself wondering, what really makes a man fall in love? What creates that deep emotional bond that goes beyond desire or routine? Most women believe that love is the result of effort, constant care, attention, loyalty, and while all of that matters, many don't realize that Carl Jung offers a powerful insight into this very question. This kind of love doesn't begin on the surface. It begins in the unconscious. What truly awakens deep love in a man isn't always visible. It's not about what you do or say. It's about what you unconsciously represent to him. It's in that quiet energy you radiate when you stop trying to be liked when you simply are. And often, the more you detach from the need to be chosen, the more unforgettable you become. This isn't magic, it's psychology. Jung called it archetypal projection, that moment when someone falls not for who you are, but for what you awaken in their inner world. He may never say it out loud, but it's there. There was a moment when he looked at you and saw something more than just a woman. He saw a symbol, an energy, something that both challenged him and pulled him in. Have you ever felt like you left a lasting impression on someone without doing anything particularly special? Has someone ever come back into your life after a long silence, without any clear reason? Maybe it wasn't about you, but about what you awakened in him. If you've ever experienced something like that, share it in the comments, because moments like these often reveal far more than we realize. The great paradox is that men don't fall in love with what they understand, they fall in love with what they can't fully grasp. They fall for what they can't control, for what shakes the foundations of their inner world. And when a woman lives in her truth, when she doesn't betray herself out of fear of losing him, something shifts. Her presence becomes magnetic, even if she's not trying to attract. But many women, instead of trusting that authenticity, lose themselves trying to become what they think he wants. And that's when the spark begins to fade, not because love isn't there, but because the mystery. Jung said that what we suppress becomes our destiny. And when a woman suppresses her true essence, her energy stops resonating with his soul. And here's the most fascinating part, he often doesn't even know why he keeps thinking about her. Why he dreams of her. Why, even after letting her go, her image lingers like a whisper he can't silence. Because when a woman unconsciously embodies an archetype he has yet to integrate, she becomes a mirror. And no one forgets the mirror that first showed them their own soul. Carl Jung explained this in a way that was almost poetic. The truth is, we don't love people for who they are, we love them for what they mean to us. And when a woman, without even intending to, becomes a powerful symbol in a man's unconscious, she awakens in him a pull that runs far deeper than physical attraction. It touches something ancient, stirs long-buried emotional memories. This isn't coincidence. It's psychic destiny. A man may meet many women in his life. Some will make him laugh. Some will stand by him in hard times. Some may even share years with him. But there will be only one who stays in his heart. She resonates with him, and she is rarely the most beautiful or the most perfect. She is almost always the one who never tried to be. The one who entered his life with calm and confidence. The one who didn't seek external approval. The one who, instead of trying to please him, chose herself, without guilt. This woman, without even realizing it, becomes a symbolic figure, an embodiment of his anima, the feminine part of his unconscious that he has yet to integrate. And when she enters his life, something within him awakens. But here's the most intriguing part. What many women don't realize is when they're in this role, they often have no idea of the impact they're having because they're not doing anything extraordinary. They're simply being. They vibrate with authenticity, connected to their essence, and that authenticity is deeply disruptive for a man who's only known emotional connections that were surface level or built on expectations. In that moment, he doesn't fall in love with her words or her body. He falls in love with what she reflects within him, a part of himself he's never explored, but that suddenly begins to stir. And of course, this can scare him, because deep love is uncomfortable. It transforms. It forces you to look within. That's why some men pull away the moment they start to feel something real, not because they don't care, but because something deep inside them knows this woman is not like the others. And if they stay, they will have to change. They'll have to surrender. They'll have to open up to a part of their soul that's been asleep for a long time. And often, they're not ready, because the image she activates in them is too intense, too alive. They can't control it. They can't put a label on it, so they run. But they're not running from her, they're running from what they feel within themselves. That's why it's so important that you, as a woman, don't take it as rejection. If you've ever walked away from someone and couldn't understand why their absence hurt so deeply, maybe it wasn't unrequited love. Maybe you were the mirror he couldn't bear to hold on to. Tell me something. Have you ever been pushed away, not because of what you did, but because of what you represented? Was it hard to make sense of? Share your story in the comments. This experience can help many others who are feeling the same way right now. When a woman stops seeking love and starts living in her full power, something in her energy shifts. It's not about pride or indifference. It's a silent, steady strength that says without words, I belong to myself. To the male unconscious, this is both a powerful invitation and a profound disorientation. Carl Jung believed that what we fail to integrate within ourselves, we seek outside. So when a man encounters a woman who embodies the very qualities he has yet to develop within himself, emotional freedom, intuition, depth, something inside him awakens, and it's not always in a pleasant way. Sometimes the first thing he feels isn't attraction, it's discomfort. Why? Because she reflects a void, an inner space he's been avoiding for years, maybe even his entire life. He's been drawn to relationships where he could be the protector, the strong one, the one in control. But now, faced with a woman who doesn't need saving, who doesn't idolize him, who isn't desperately craving his attention, he feels disarmed. And that's often when the obsession begins. With her as a person, but with the restoration of the illusion of control that her presence shattered. He's not consciously aware of it, but what he's really chasing isn't her, it's the reconstruction of his fractured identity. That's why some men, after losing a woman like this, can never fully let her go. Months, even years, may pass, and they still carry the memory of her like a scar. It's not that they haven't moved on. It's that she represents a before and after in their emotional life. The problem is, many men don't know what to do with the emptiness she revealed, an emptiness they never learned to look within and take responsibility for their own wounds. So they look outward, to other women, to work, to distractions, but nothing fills the void she left behind. Because she didn't just leave as a person. She left as a possibility for transformation. And here's the truth. Most people miss a woman like that not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Because she walked away when she realized that staying would mean betraying herself. Because she didn't scream or beg. She simply closed the door with dignity. And that rare, courageous act leaves a mark on a man's soul, like a lesson he'll never forget. Have you ever felt like your dignity was mistaken for coldness, or your silence for indifference, when in truth you were simply valuing yourself, If so, share it below. Someone out there might need to read this, to understand that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means preserving yourself. The unconscious doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is symbolic. For Jung, this was one of the most important truths about the human psyche. That's why, when a woman becomes a symbol in a man's psyche, she stops being just a person. She becomes an idea, an echo, a mirror, and no one forgets the mirror that made them truly see themselves. After losing her, many men believe they miss her physical presence. But what hurts far more is the loss of the feeling she awakened in them. A mix of awe, confusion, and desire that defies logical explanation. Because when a connection touches the soul, no rational reason is ever enough. In her absence, the male unconscious begins working with terrifying intensity, he rereads old conversations, memorizes her gestures, idealizes moments. But none of it brings back the original feeling. Because he's not searching for her. He's trying to return to that inner place he could only access through her. And that, deep down, is both beautiful and tragic. Because the more he tries to revive her in memory, the further he drifts from the real opportunity for integration. The chance to look inward and ask, what parts of me were activated by her presence? What emptiness was revealed when she left? A woman who doesn't compete, who doesn't beg, who doesn't desperately try, what she embodies is something deeply revolutionary to the male psyche. She doesn't represent traditional romance or pleasant appearance. She represents freedom. And though it hurts, it captivates. Because deep down, we all long for freedom. But very few are ready to love from that place of freedom. Through this experience, a man unconsciously begins his journey toward individuation. Jung described it as the path where we stop seeking outside what can only be found within. And more often than not, that path doesn't begin with. It doesn't always begin with a revelation. Sometimes it begins with loss. Sometimes all it takes is a single glance, a goodbye without blame, a door closed in quiet peace. And his entire inner world collapses. And in that collapse, he finds not just sorrow. He finds possibility. Because where nothing remains, there's finally space to build something new. And perhaps that's what leaves the deepest mark. That she didn't try to stay by force. Didn't fight her own departure. But understood something essential. What is real doesn't need to be forced. And the deepest kind of love is never begged for. It's honored. Let me ask you one question, and I ask you to answer it with complete honesty. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who didn't truly value you? Did you do it out of love for yourself, even though it hurt? If so, share it in the comments. Your story may touch more hearts than you can imagine. In the loneliness that follows the departure of a conscious woman, a quiet transformation begins. At first he believes he'll move on as he always has. By distracting himself, by denying what happened. But this time, it's different. Nothing fills the emptiness. Nothing soothes him, because this wasn't just another loss. It was a rupture within. Carl Jung spoke of breaking points in the psyche. Moments when life, without asking for permission, forces us to confront what we've long avoided. For many men, the woman who left quietly, without drama, without explanations, became one of those breaking points. Not because she wanted to hurt him, but because her departure revealed a truth no one else had dared to show him. Suddenly he begins asking questions he's never asked before. Why did I feel like I needed her? Why did this happen? It hurt so much when she left, even though I barely knew her. What part of myself was I searching for in her? And in that sea of questions, his self-image begins to crumble. He's no longer the man who's always in control. No longer the one who never falls in love. No longer the one who always leads emotionally. Now, he is vulnerable. A man touched by a connection deeper than anything he's known before. This connection has changed him. And though it confuses him, it also stirs something inside. Something this woman embodied through her silence. Her independence. A loving yet unattached sincerity. That's what he still had to discover within himself. She didn't come to offer him stability. She came to reveal just how unstable his inner world truly was. And that revelation, painful as it may be, is the beginning of awakening. Many men, upon reaching this point, resist. They want to go back to how things were. They want to forget, to numb it, to bury it deep inside. But the soul doesn't work that way. Once it's been touched, there is no going back. And so, despite the discomfort, some begin to choose to step back, to breathe, to look within. They start reading, reflecting, asking themselves questions about their childhood, past relationships, and behavioral patterns they've been repeating without even realizing it. They begin to question their need for approval, their fear of abandonment, their inability to love without control, and slowly they start to see the problem was never her, but the distorted image they had projected onto her. This moment is pivotal, because this is where the potential for integration is born. When a person stops searching outside for what can only be. A wound can only heal from within. And with time, it begins to heal, not through denial, but through acceptance, through humility, through the realization that love is something greater than possession. Maybe you, the one listening right now, have gone through this too. Maybe you felt misunderstood in your presence, or seen your departure mistaken for coldness, when in truth your soul was simply seeking peace. If you recognize yourself in this, share it in the comments. Your truth might be the mirror someone else needs today. And over time, something begins to shift. Change doesn't happen loudly. It doesn't come through some dramatic external event. It happens quietly, as if a new way of seeing the world begins to awaken inside him. He no longer searches for that woman in others. No longer chases her through memories. Now he's beginning to understand what really happened. Carl Jung said that the process of individuation begins when we stop identifying with our masks. And that's exactly what has taken place. He no longer sees himself as the conqueror, the one who's always in control. He started to notice his flaws, and instead of frightening him, those cracks have become his most human parts. The woman who left quietly, who made no demands, who caused no scenes, now appears in his mind differently. She is no longer the unattainable woman. Now she is the woman who, without even intending to, revealed to him the value of his own inner world. It's no longer about getting her back. It's about understanding what she awakened. And what she awakened wasn't desire. It was presence. It was awareness. It was an invitation to return to himself. Because what captivated him was never her silence, but that silence reflected a woman who didn't need approval to feel whole. A woman who didn't want to remain in a culture where men are taught that to love means to possess, and to attach means to dominate, all for the sake of her own peace. A woman who loves freely embodies an inner revolution. She cannot be manipulated. She cannot be held onto. She can only be respected. And deep down, that's what transforms a man. That's when he begins to treat himself differently. To listen to himself. To stop seeking love as if he's searching for her. Salvation isn't about finding someone who will choose him despite his emptiness. It's about becoming the one who chooses himself honestly. And through that, creating a real connection. In that moment, her image softens, and the pain is no longer what it once was. Now, she is a bright, almost sacred, memory. Because she, without even meaning to, ignited his soul. Not to stay, but to point him toward his own path. And if you, as a woman, have ever felt that your way of loving was misunderstood, if you've ever chosen to walk away because staying would have meant betraying, I want you to know this. Decisions like that are never forgotten. Maybe no one ever told you. Maybe even he never fully understood it. But you planted a seed, and that seed, even if it grew in silence, changed someone's life. Have you ever felt that your energy left a mark on someone's life, even if you never intended it to? Your departure meant more than any forced presence ever could. If so, share your experience. Your story might be the spark someone else needs on their own path. There comes a moment when obsession fades and gives way to something deeper. Understanding. It's no longer just the need to be near her. It's the recognition that she unknowingly became a turning point. A marker of before and after. Not because of what she said, but because of how she existed and how she left. Carl Jung believed that what touches us deeply remains within us as a symbol. And a symbol doesn't disappear. It doesn't need to be physically present to continue affecting us. That's what's happening with her. She's no longer there. But her energy is still alive. Like a melody that keeps resonating long after the music has stopped. He begins to see more clearly. He begins to understand that for a long time, he used to seek relationships where he could feel important, needed, irreplaceable. But with her, it was different. There was no neediness, no struggle, only choice. And that disarmed him. Because no one had ever taught him how to love freely. No one had ever shown him that he could be vulnerable without losing his dignity. That he didn't need to be needed in order to be deeply loved. She showed him this not through words, but through her presence. And also through her absence. And that's where true transformation begins. He no longer seeks women in order to fill a void. He no longer tries to fix his emotions by chasing new stories. Now he understands. Love is not something to demand or earn. It's something to share. From a place of wholeness. Not from a place of lack. And the most beautiful part is, in that moment, she no longer has to do anything. She doesn't need to come back, to explain herself, or to prove anything. Her role is already complete. She was the catalyst, the lighthouse, the mirror. Her energy did what it was meant to do. It woke him up. And you, witnessing all of this, have you ever felt like you were the starting point? At the moment of someone else's emotional awakening? Even if the relationship was brief? Have you ever felt that something deep stayed with them, even if they never said it out loud? If any part of this story resonates with your soul, share it below. Sometimes, sharing what we've been through is the quietest and most powerful way to heal. In this new chapter, he no longer runs from himself. Now he understands everything he was looking for in her. The calm, the depth, the freedom he can find within himself. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not without effort. But with each conscious choice, he moves closer to his truth. And what's fascinating is, he no longer needs to search for it in someone else. Because now, when he thinks about her presence in his life, he doesn't do it with longing, but with gratitude. It was she, without even knowing, who showed him that real love isn't about staying, but about leaving a mark. And where there was once emptiness, there is now understanding. It no longer hurts the way it used to. He no longer loses sleep over questions with no answers. A new path has opened before him to see life with more calm, honesty, and awareness. Because once a man crosses the threshold into himself, he can never love the way he used to. Carl Jung said that what we accept within ourselves transforms us. And that is exactly what happened. The man who once needed to be chosen in order to feel worthy now understands that his value doesn't lie in being desired, but in being authentic. The wound is a compass. Her memory, which once burned, now shines. Because she was never a loss. She was a message. A lesson wrapped first in presence, and then in absence. And what once felt like a goodbye was actually the beginning of everything. A love that didn't end in promises or explanations made space for something even greater. A transformation, not of the relationship, but of the soul. Because when someone touches your essence, it doesn't matter whether they stay or leave. What matters is what they awaken in you. And you, woman, are on the other side of that awakening. The story is this. Perhaps you never truly knew the impact your energy had. Perhaps you thought you left unnoticed. But I want you to remember this. When you love consciously, with dignity and freedom, you always leave a mark. Not on someone's ego, but on their soul. And that lasts. And you, man who has been through this process, maybe now you understand that what you lost wasn't her, but a part of yourself you had not yet accepted. And maybe, just maybe, her departure wasn't the end, but a doorway that led you back to yourself. I invite you to share in the comments. What did this video awaken in you? Perhaps you've lived through a similar story. Perhaps you're the woman who learned to let go at the right time. Perhaps you're the man who has begun to awaken. Whatever your experience, your voice might be the mirror someone else needs today. And if this message resonated with your soul, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who's ready to love differently.